Let's give a big Clark College welcome to Christine Watson.
Thank you. Today I'm going to be talking to you about project management and what it is to be a project manager. But before I get started with that, I'd kind of like to get an idea of what fields you guys are going into. So earlier we were talking a little bit about who's in web development and who's in the web design. Is it graphics?
Yeah,
graphics. What other courses are you guys in?
Web development here.
Yeah,
Web
development.
Yeah.
pretty much all web? Oh, okay, that makes it easier.
I'll say that mine is web and graphic design, but I have a focus trying to do project management in web and graphic design.
Okay, great.
But it's
Jen,
not
how about you?
You're a web. Okay, great. So I graduated from here 2 years ago with a web development degree. Went to work for Formations Design Group, which used to be on Officers Row, but now we are more downtown on 16th and C Street. Projects do not have to be very big. They don't have to be very long, but they do have certain things that make up a project. So you have to have a timeline, you have to have a goal, at least one, and to finish the project, you must, anyone want to guess?
deploy.
Accomplish the goal.
Accomplish the goal, hopefully within the timeline and
With the
without overusing your resources. So, huh?
Twice the budget.
Yeah, that happens. Twice the budget happens, definitely. Project managers are not always called project managers. Over the last 6 months or so, I've been trying to get to know more project managers so I can learn from them. They do not always have that title though. So I have spent some time with an event planner. She does a lot of time setting up weddings, and that is very definitely project management. If all the pieces don't come together on the big day, everybody knows you failed your project. Lead engineers, account managers, marketing directors, project coordinators, facilities managers. That one kind of surprised me. I met a gentleman that works downtown Portland. I thought facilities manager, custodian, but actually it's a really complicated job, and what he does is pretty amazing. And the more he talked about it, the more I thought, okay, I'm happy with my little web job over here. So the more time you spend as a project manager, the bigger projects you are probably going to start getting. In my case, it's because I went and found those big jobs, but for some people, it's just because after you have so much experience, you just move into those kind of jobs. Does anybody have any questions about job titles? Okay. If you want to check it out sometime, just put like project manager in Indeed, and you'll get a whole list of jobs that don't look like project
I do have a question.
manager.
Can you actually call yourself a project manager if you don't have like PMI certification?
Yes, because that's my job title.
Okay.
There are actually different levels of certification. So
The same way web developers call themselves engineers.
true. I've seen that. I've actually bumped into some web developers that they're not really developers either. To be a project manager, you need to be good at planning, organization, communication. Communication is key. You have to be able to communicate with a wide variety of people in a timely manner from different cultures. Especially today, we communicate so much more now than we used to. I grew up without a cell phone, which dates me, I know, but because of the internet, we can talk with our developers that are in Vietnam, Greece, Italy, France, Sweden, Australia, and we can do all that today. So you really have to be able to take into consideration that they have different cultures, the way they communicate is different, the way they are going to interact with you is different. We are a pretty direct society. When I talk to our developers in Germany, for example, they are also a direct culture, so they're going to be right there with the back and forth, and it's really clear communication as long as we stay on that level. But if you are talking to someone from Thailand or Vietnam, Korea, Japan, you need to take the time to be polite, ask them about the weather, how they're doing, because that's part of their culture. And if you just jump right in with, this is what I need, they're going to feel hurt, and that creates a barrier in your communication. You have to be good at working with people that are all different kinds of personalities. Have any of you taken the Myers-Briggs?
Mm-hmm.
Were any of you surprised by your results? No?
I think it took that one on interpersonal communications.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that it hasn't changed since I've been taking it since I was 18, like the levels of them do.
Yeah.
But it's stayed the same since I've taken it since I was in high school.
Yeah. Yeah, the test is the same. I took it again this summer, and I've always had these kind of weird mixed results with extrovert, introvert. And so I nailed the instructor down afterwards, and I said, could you help me understand what's happening here? So I'm actually an introvert who has to act the part of an extrovert almost all the time. So I have over time developed skills so I can stand here and not cry, or whatever. I don't really cry. But I can stand here and talk to you better than I did when I started, I believe. If you talk to Bruce, you'll know I still turn red. I can't help it. That's just who I am. But when I first started out with my classes, getting in front of people was like the worst thing you could do to me. I did not want to do it. Now I do it all the time. I talk in front of boards for different companies and agencies in town, and I talk to them mostly about Joomla and their website, which I'm much more comfortable with than this topic. Because while I do this, I don't usually talk about doing it. Risk assessment, we'll probably talk about that more later. Conflict management. If you haven't taken a conflict management class, whether or not you want to go into project management, you should definitely take that class. You are going to have conflicts with people, whether it's your clients or team members or your hosting service. You are going to have conflicts with people. You need to know how to safely navigate through those conflicts and come out with everybody feeling like they got what they needed out of the conversation. You have to learn to anticipate needs. Shopping, which one of my project management friends, that's her favorite part of being a project manager. She works for a company that builds very large buildings, mainly downtown Portland. And so when she goes shopping, she spends millions of dollars. That's procurement. Sometimes, like in my case, I don't do most of the procurement for us because our developer does that, but we go shopping for pieces of software. So the price tag's a lot lower. You have to have a high attention to detail, and you need to constantly be learning and educating other people.
I was just thinking that list looks like a parent. I mean, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It is a lot like being a parent, which is probably why I have experience doing it. So the history of project management, because I promised you guys I would talk about this when I came to visit last time. So ancient people have built the pyramids and other wonders of the world. If you don't think they had any kind of project management to make that happen, you need to think again. We don't know what their methods were, and I really wish I knew what methods they used to build the Great Pyramid, because it's amazing, but we don't know what those techniques were. What we do know is that Henry Gantt, around 1910, applied the scientific methods that he was learning in college to his job building ships. What he wanted to know was, is there a faster, better way for us to build ships and build them so that it's consistently a good ship every time? And what he did was he looked at what a worker could do, how long it took him to do it, what needed to be done in order, and he created this really fancy thing called a Gantt chart, which most of the world still uses today. In World War II, the Second Great War, the military, well, militaries from all over the world had to move large amounts of machinery and people and everything that people need all over, and it had to be there on time, and through that they developed certain processes to make all of that happen on time. While they were there, soldiers learned those techniques and brought it home, and then when they went to create their own businesses or work in other people's businesses, they applied those techniques. And that's basically the birth of modern project management. So that all changed when computers started being a thing, when everybody started having computers, and then the internet. That just changed how we do things. And now we have a huge amount of new tools, which if I don't talk too long, we will be able to get to a list of. So here's the iron triangle. When those boys came home from World War II, this is what they knew. Every project has to have a scope. You have to know what it is you're going to do and what you're not going to do. It has to have a budget, so there's the cost, and you have to have a timeline. If you don't have a deadline, people don't do stuff. We're lazy by nature. We won't do it unless we have a deadline. And this original model worked for some time, but after a while they discovered something kind of interesting. Is it enough to just get the job done and meet those base criteria you had starting out? Or does quality matter? And it turns out quality matters. So they added quality, and they wanted to keep the triangle, so it stayed right there in the middle of the triangle. Yeah, it's all about quality, so we're going to put it in the middle. Which is great, though, that they did that, because that started this process where people started defining more clearly what parameters something had to have to be a quality product. And I'm not going to talk about that anymore because you guys already had that speaker. Next, they figured out, oh, quality isn't the only thing going on here. We have to have resources. And then there was this other not so happy thing called risk. Risk is anything that can make your project blow up and you don't have a plan for it. If you don't have a plan for it, then it's really going to blow up. So now we learn risk management. And so I'm going to give you an example from my time here as a student for risk. And I'm sorry if anybody knows the people involved. Was it my last quarter here? I think it was my last quarter here. I had my dream project in web design 2. I was working with a developer that I really liked. He was fantastic. And another guy that was an opportunity for me to teach things I'd learned to. And I thought, this is a great project. I like the clients. Everything's going great. And one day my developer guy didn't show up for class. And then he didn't show up for a client meeting and not another class. And then he hadn't been there for a couple weeks. And I had no idea what to do because it never occurred to me that he would just stop showing up. In the end, we did figure out something and we made it work, and the client still uses the website today with some minor modifications. But that's the kind of thing that you have to be prepared for. If I'd been prepared for, what if he doesn't show up? What am I going to do then? If I'd already thought it through, it wouldn't have been such a big thing. And now that I have a job with formations, we have those kind of things come up occasionally, but there's only one thing that I cannot adjust for, and that's actually losing one of the partners in the business. So everything else, I have a plan. If something happens to one of them, though, it's a major change, and all of the clients we're working for right now would have to be informed. Yeah.
So when you're assessing risk, how deeply do you go specifically?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
There's a tool. So what you do is you say, okay, what are the chances that this thing's going to happen? Is it a high chance or a low chance? What is the impact it would have on the project? Is it a high chance or a low chance? And then anything that has a high impact, you make a plan for it. Even if the chances of it happening are like 1%, you make a plan for it, because if it happens, you need to be prepared. Anything that is anything that could stop the project from happening, you need to make a plan for it. If it's low risk and probably not going to impact the project, then it's good to be aware that it could happen. But I'll give you an example. Karen, one of the partners at Formations, found out a couple weeks ago that her cousin died. She's been out of work all this week, and because she wanted to go to the memorial service in Kentucky, and I totally get that, and I think it's good that she got to go. But our schedule is full every day through past the end of the year. So now we have to figure out how we're going to adjust everything so that all of the work that she really should have been able to get done this week is still going to happen on projects that are due by the end of the year, for example. So it happens. It happens on almost every project. You're going to have something go wrong. It's just the nature of how things work. The idea is to be prepared for it so that when it does happen, you're not overwhelmed by it.
So what would be that resource? So, say we have a team of 5 and my company's only 7, would you like have pre-set up some vendors or consultants that you would have come fill in a space? Is that like how you would handle a resource?
Sometimes we have done that where we brought someone in. We use a service for freelancers that, well, we have friends that are freelancers, and I say friends because we use them over and over again, so we have developed a personal relationship with them over time. But we also have a service, so occasionally we bring in freelancers that way. And but we try to avoid that because it's additional cost that we weren't expecting. We can't pass that on to the client. It's not their fault that we had an employee failure. So.
What kind of methodology do you use, like Agile?
I will get to that in just a minute if that's okay. I just want to finish this iron triangle up real quick because there's one more thing. There has to be a sense of value for your client or customer. Whenever you make a product, whether it's a website or a logo or a box of cereal, they have to feel that they have a sense of value from it. And so customer satisfaction has now filled out the 7 points of our triangle. I've always thought that was really funny, is 7 points. So we have processes that we go through, and so initiating, that's the beginning. Planning, which Americans are the worst at. Executing, which Americans are the best at. Monitoring and controlling, which should be happening all along. And then closing. And a lot of people skip the closing, and I'm going to explain to you why you shouldn't do that. So initiating, we're going to evaluate the needs of the project. I take a slightly different approach, partly because I know our client base. I actually evaluate what the client needs, not what they say they need, because a lot of times they just don't know.
Yeah, they don't know.
And they're trying really hard to tell us what it is that they need, but they just don't know enough to give us the information we need. So it's good if you sit down and think it through, ask them a lot more questions, get a lot of back and forth started during this phase, because it's a healthier relationship if you are constantly going to them and saying, hey, we're setting up the blog. Do you want people to be able to make comments on your blogs, or do you want to have that shut off so you don't have to pay any attention to it, that kind of thing. So over time you develop a relationship with them, and they get used to you asking them questions constantly about what it is they really want. That helps you learn who they are and what to expect from them too. So when you get to something really tough, like, we ran into this really big problem with the wish list that you wanted to magically pull something that it's not built to pull, then you've already created a relationship with them, and you can talk to them about what they really need and what you can feasibly do within the budget and that kind of thing. Scope, you guys probably already know this. It defines your outcomes, purpose, and value. So it's a good idea to create a project charter, even if you're just doing something really small. And I'll tell you why. Yeah.
The problem when doing small projects, and even in a class I'm in right now, nobody even seems to want to do a project charter. If you look at that, they think like I'm being too formal. They don't see the benefit in it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is just a small
I get that a lot.
project of 20
Naivety.
people. We don't need a project charter or a project scope or anything. We'll just
Right, because
do
we're
it.
Americans and we're just gonna do
We're
it.
just gonna do no calendar.
Naivety.
We'll put some posters up.
Yeah.
How do you encourage people to see the benefit if this is needed, whether it's for an external client or your own?
I just do it for myself. A lot of the time I don't share my project charter with my bosses or anybody else. It's more for me. I define what it is that they need, how we're going to get there. So, for example, I have listened to the client, and I know they need 6 different extensions added to Joomla. And I understand why they need these extensions. So if I forget, because clients, and I love our clients, don't get me wrong, I love our clients, but they will get busy with their own business and their own lives, and they will not give us anything for 3 months sometimes. And I will have to go back to that charter that I made, which is just 1 page, and just refresh in my mind when they call me up. I'm like, quick. Oh, there it is. Oh yeah, I remember now. Because you need to be able to have something where you can quickly glance and see what it is you're needing to get done. You don't necessarily have to have everybody else sign off on it. The best practice is to have your sponsor sign off on it, but in our case, there's 3 of us in the office normally. And if they had to sign off on everything I do, we'd not get any work done. Somebody else had a question.
Oh, yeah, how important is, do you do like a log management by walking around and those kinds of communications? communication techniques.
Do a lot of what?
Management by walking around. It was,
Oh.
Packard came up with that one. And just wondering.
I'm not familiar with that, so. Sorry?
You have 3 people in the office.
Yeah, we have 3 people in the office, and now, since we moved, we're all in the same room. So that's been interesting. Because it used to be where we had different spaces. We had to get up and move to talk to each other. Now we just turn our chair.
Yeah.
And we've had days where we probably should have given ourselves a timeout, you know. But it's good to have that communication anyway, because now if somebody's frustrated with something or can't figure something out, we are right there. And there's a lot of back and forth now, where before it was like,
More of a team.
sorry?
Do you feel like you're more of a team now that you're
Yeah.
in the same space?
Yeah. And actually, we're leaning a little more toward that agile type of project management now, just because we're all sitting there working on the same stuff together. So planning is where Americans fall down the most culturally, but where we should be spending a lot more time. If you plan properly, you save yourself a lot of time and trouble later. So you can create a project plan which basically covers everything, or if you have a small project, just do what you know you need to do for this project. We have several smaller projects. If I spent all the time it takes to go through absolutely everything that we do for our bigger projects, I'd blow our entire budget just doing that. So I don't do that. But you do need to have a communication plan, especially with your client. I work with the same people over and over again, so we already have an established line of communication. They know what to expect from me, I know what to expect from them. But when there's somebody new, I do this communication plan again. Does anybody have any
Can you talk
questions?
about the escalation plan,
Okay.
please?
Occasionally, when there is a conflict, you have to talk about how you're going to escalate it. It could be something with a project, it could be interpersonal, but you need to have a plan for, let's say one of our freelancers was having a personal issue with me. What can they do to get around me to still be heard? So I have that plan set up. If they need to talk to someone else, they know which one of the partners they are going to talk to. Also, if there's a problem with a project and I'm not available, I start just not being online for a month, or not a month, a weekend every month. You need a break sometimes, so I don't even look at my phone. I don't watch TV. I don't watch the news. I don't look at social media, which a lot of people think is weird. I don't do anything like that for 2 days a month. I think you just need to give yourself a break. It's healthy.
So you consider it is a stressful role. I mean, every project
Right,
manager that
yeah.
I've been involved with, it's a stressful. You've got to be able to manage your own emotions, or else
Right.
everything goes to hell. So.
That's like the 80 students bugging you on Slack.
My daughter, one of my daughters, I have 2 of them. One of them is, she goes to PCC. She's in her 2nd year of the ASL program over there. One of the first things they taught her was that you need to be concerned about self-care. And I listened to what she was saying, because she's all excited. Ooh, I'm going to school. I want to tell you everything I'm learning. And she showed me this chart she'd made for self-care. I wish I'd had it when I was a student, because you need to take care of yourself. it's so easy to not get enough sleep because you have that project due the next day, or you have a paper or whatever. And it's extra easy for you to do that when you are working and you have a social life and you have family and you're going to school. It's a lot on you. But if you don't take care of yourself, all those things just start getting bigger and bigger. And so I highly recommend self-care. She did this really great thing. I'm not this, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't look at it this small, but she's like, brush your teeth night and morning. Did you eat? Because she forgets to eat. She's skinny as a rail, you wouldn't know. But she forgets to eat sometimes because she gets busy. She works, she goes to school over there, she rides the bus to do it. So she spends about 2 hours a day on the bus when she rides the bus. And then on top of that, she works. And so she was one of those people that just really needed to be able to break it down. And I paid attention. I don't always do it, but I paid attention. So did anybody else have a question for planning? Yeah?
Oh, my question was for the last one.
Oh, go ahead.
Really quickly, what was, is the project charter for the last one initiating? Is it kind of like just like an outline before you figure out what your project is?
Right, so usually it just is one piece of paper, and a lot of people do it by hand with boxes because they can write on it as they go. I like to type mine, partly because when Bruce, my boss Bruce, not the one in the back of the room, when he writes anything down, you can't read it, and if you ask him even the next day, he can't remember what it was he wrote, and he can't read it himself. He's a great guy, but he's not a writer. So yeah, what we do is I just type everything up, and I try and keep a digital copy of all of our notes because Karen works from home 2 days a week, so that way she can go in and look at whatever our notes are and that kind of thing too. Yeah.
I want to go back to Iron Triangle. Can you explain more about time and cost? Because sometimes the projects have one project to do for complete, and but by the time it's not complete. So how about the project cost, or which cost the customer?
Oh, okay. What I try to do is catch it before it gets to a place where the time and cost are so far out of the timeline and cost for the project that it's going to be a problem. So like, we happen to have one right now where we have a deadline of the end of the year, and they keep asking for more things that they thought were reasonable and we didn't expect. So we didn't budget for it. So right now their timeline and cost is really out of whack. So I had to talk to them about it last week. And they're willing to adjust. Usually you have to have a little give and take, especially in web. In some businesses you can't do that. So I talked to somebody last summer who works in physical manufacturing, and he said if their budget gets off, well, he works for a large shoe company. They have two choices if their budget's off for production of a shoe. They either stop it and don't produce the shoe, or because they've gone over budget or past their timeline and they can't meet their deadline. They either stop it completely, or they decide we're going to push through anyway because we want to have the shoe made. So you have options. You just should be aware of what's happening with your project as it's happening. And the earlier you can say, oh, we're having a little bit of an issue with this project, maybe we can look at what's causing this and try to fix it. So if like Karen was gone for a week, if that's the issue, then we can all work, 14 hours next week and get about halfway there to make up for the time that she was away, if we want to. Does that help? Okay. Yeah. Talking to people who work for large companies is really interesting. So here's where Americans are really good. We like to do stuff. We're very competitive and we like to get it done. So in general, this is where America outshines other countries. While you're executing your plan, you need to continually manage risks, pay attention to conflict management, resources. You need to learn to delegate, which is, I've been talking about Karen. Gosh, I hope she doesn't watch this. If Karen had chosen to say, hey, I'm going to be gone, could someone else handle my workload while I'm gone, then we would have had an alternative to being behind on a couple of her projects. She didn't want to delegate it, which is fine, because I know Karen and she's going to fix it when she's back, but that was an option for her. For me, delegation means I'm hiring somebody to do something that we either don't have the time or the resources to do ourselves. So, does that help?
I have a question.
Sure.
So like for task managing of others that you hire, are you able to be very specific with them and give them like a timeline plan also in addition to what their job description or what their expected results are?
Right,
and
yeah. Yeah, I give them a very specific list of requirements. I usually let developers choose how they're going to write that code. I don't micromanage developers.
But you give them something as to what.
Right, they have
a schedule.
Right, they have a schedule. They have a budget. We agree on the budget before they begin. Sometimes we agree on a budget for them to look at what it's going to take to do it. So I might pay somebody 5 hours to just look at what's already there and what we need to do to make it do what the client wants it to do now. And at the end of the 5 hours, if he comes back and says, it's going to take 22 hours, and the client says, never mind, then he's not out anything, or she. They're not out anything because they got paid for the time it took them to figure out what it would take. And so far, we haven't had a client say no to that. Our developers are pretty reasonable. So, and also, they're committed to that. So if he or she, in this particular case it was a he, if he said 22 hours and the client said yes, and it took him 34 hours, he knows he's only getting paid for 22, but he still has to make it work. It happens sometimes. I try not to do that. So there's this thing that people do. They try to pad their projects a little bit. It's good to have a little bit of cushion, but if you give yourself too much cushion, you might make the client change their mind about doing the project. So you still have to kind of walk a fine line, especially if you're freelancing, because people, they're hiring a freelancer to do their website, they think that means really cheap. And you can't always do it really cheap, so be careful to give yourself some padding. We do. It's not a lot, but we give ourselves padding. One of the reasons I can get away with not giving us too much padding is because I overthink the project before I even do the proposal. And I ask tons of questions. And still, sometimes miss things, but can try to avoid it. Closing. Everybody loves the end because you get to have a party. It's a great idea to have a party at the end. I don't know if you guys still do this for some of your classes, but I used to love it when we would have food or something on the last day, because it's like a little party. And you get to celebrate that you finished something. It's good to do that with your teams too. If you are working with a team later and you finish a project, for us, we finish one and we're just right into something else that we're already working on, because we sometimes have 12 open projects at a time. But it's good to celebrate, especially if you can get the client to come in on it. Then you can find out, what did you do well, what did you not do so well, what can you do better in the future, and you can really analyze that and figure out how you can make your processes better, not just for you, but for your clients. If you can really make a client happy, they are your best advertising. They will go around and tell everybody, you want these people because they will get it right, or they made me feel like I was part of my website being built, or whatever it is that they're gonna say. There's this ethic that is part of web development and part of project management. You want to be honest, you want to be genuine all the time, because people, how do I say this, they smell BS a mile away, and if they are catching that you are not telling them the truth, they are going to go somewhere else and they will tell other people. So do not ever lie to a client. You have to be either transparent or you have to be incredibly good at hiding stuff. And I'm not good at hiding things, so I'm just transparent. And I think that's the better way to go. Monitoring and controlling should happen all the time, and this is what we were talking about earlier. We pretty much already covered it. You need to pay attention to what's going on. If you're getting over budget, you need to communicate with the client, you need to talk to your team and figure out how to fix it. So here's your question. Finally, I'm talking too much. Really long. So waterfall is plan driven. It uses that Gantt chart we were talking about earlier. I'm not going to show you a Gantt chart because we could spend a whole hour talking about how that works. But waterfall is best for projects that you do one thing, you do the next thing, and then you do the next thing, and then you're done, basically. That's the gist of it. But really, you're doing a thing, and then you're checking to see if that was right. And then you're doing a thing, and you're checking to see if that was right. If you're not doing quality checks all the way through, then you're probably going to end up with a product where the client says, that's not what I wanted, and you have to start over, and there's no budget. Agile was born out of some very frustrated people who were starting, in some very big companies. So a bunch of guys got together when they were not at work, and there was some alcohol involved, and they decided, let's make an agreement. We're not going to do things the same old way anymore, and they came up with the Agile Manifesto over a weekend, which is pretty impressive if you think about it. And out of that has come a whole new system for managing projects. They shifted the focus, and it's a very cooperative way of building. And you'll hear the word iterative a lot. It's because you do a thing, and then you check on it, and then you do a thing, and you check on it, and it's like circles, basically. And from that, we got Scrum. Scrum is sort of a way of doing Agile. Try not to get too, it's time boxed. Does anybody know what a Scrum is? Scrum is, it's a sports term.
Wasn't it like old?
Yes.
Oh, football
for rugby. Yeah, I am not a rugby fan. I was totally stumped. Where did you come up with this word? Anyway, it basically means time boxed. So everything that you do when you're using Scrum is set up in sprints, and sprints last 1 to 2 weeks. Normally they can last 3 or 4 weeks, but that's a long time. But what you do is, we would get like these 5 people, and they're going to work on this section of this project for the next week. And each one of them might take a piece of it, but they're going to be cooperating together. And what ends up happening is that they learn what they can count on each other for, what they can't count on each other for, and always, without fail, they become closer. Even when they hate each other outside of work, personality clashes. But for work, you know you can count on them. You know what you're going to count on them for. And here's the real trick for project managers, and I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. We should always give you a carrot. If you're a developer and you have a sprint coming up, you should know at the end of this, hey, we have 9 days to get this thing done, and if it's done that day, we get a day to do anything we want to. That is exactly how some really great software was born, by the way. On a free day at Google, look it up. On a free day at Google, one of our favorite applications was born. There are other companies where that's happened too, where they just were done with their project on time, they got a free day, and they came up with some really great idea, and over time, that pet project grew into something really great that everybody uses. Basecamp, for example, was a pet project that was born out of, is it Perl or Ruby? I can't remember now. Do you know, Bruce?
Oh, I forgot.
That's okay. I think it was Ruby on Rails.
Yes.
I think it was Ruby on Rails because he wanted to have a way to show off Ruby on Rails, and then he created Basecamp, or the base of Basecamp. So anyway, Kanban. Has anybody heard of Kanban? Great. Toyota, we have to thank for Kanban. What it is basically is they wanted to have a way to communicate what needed to be done. They wanted it broken down into little bits. They call them, this is the story, the tasks are on cards or sticky notes, and then the cards are put on a whiteboard, and you give it columns, and you can move them around. And so here, I'll show you what it looks like. It's highly visible. Yeah, so you can have as few as 3. You have a to-do, you have what you're doing, and done. And sometimes you have more. I personally love having the testing in there, but this is what it is. It's very simple. And if this appeals to you, there are online applications you should get to know. Asana can do it, Trello can do it, there are a few others, but all of these are project management tools. I've tried almost all of them, well, about half of them, I shouldn't say almost all of them. I've played with more than I've actually really worked with. So I've worked with Asana, I've worked with Trello, I've played with Rike, I work with Teamwork Now, I have worked with Basecamp. I have not worked with Jira, but I have heard good things about it. I have a friend who uses Smartsheet exclusively. For me, that's not a good fit because one of my team members is highly visible. So anything that looks that much like a spreadsheet is not very helpful. There's MavenLink, Liquid Planner, Clarizen, Insightly is actually a CRM that has project management software. Zoho is also a CRM that has project management. I didn't put it on here, but Bitrix 24 is a CRM that has project management. Red Booth used to be something else, and it's escaping my mind right now. Anyway, out of these tools, and this isn't all of them, this is just some of them. These are the ones that I know of off the top of my head. I typed this up last night.
Is Microsoft Project Manager like outdated?
That is not project management.
Okay, no, I wasn't sure, so that's just more of the one.
No, a lot of people use that. It's just not my favorite tool.
It's nobody's favorite. I'm just trying to
It's not my favorite tool. Yeah.
I was just saying, I worked with it was called CC Professional, and it was a content management system. That's what they called it. That's the same thing as Jira, because I also worked with Jira, but I didn't know what I was doing, what I was working with.
Yeah, I don't know that one, so I'd have to look it up. But I know that you can get some of these, at least a free trial. Some of them you can use for free as long as you don't want too many projects going on. So you could play around with them and see. Our team happens to use Glip for communication and small projects. If it is a bigger project, we use Teamwork right now. Karen really wants us to try Bitrix 24,
What
which
was
is
the first one you said?
Glip. Glip is like Slack, except a little bit different.
We have a whole unit in a few weeks on collaboration tools.
Oh, great. So I will skip that since you're going to have it later.
No, you'll come back.
I'll come back. What day is it? I'll come back. So recently, PMI, who certifies the majority of project managers in the United States and really largely the world, they just came out with their newest book. It's 6th edition, and it was last month. So that thing I was saying about constantly learning, I have a whole new set of things to learn. But one of the great things about it, and why I threw it in here, is because Agile is now part of the certification for being a project manager starting in March, I believe it is. So that's going to be part of what all project managers have to learn. And I'm going to leave you with one quick thing. The Empire State Building has a really interesting project management story, but I can see I'm way over time here. So instead of telling it to you, I'm going to say you guys should check it out. Just look up why it was built and how it was built, and it's a really interesting story. Okay.
In the beginning, you were talking about communication and knowing who you're talking to and cultures and things like that.
Yeah.
Was that something that you had been told beforehand, like, hey, by the way, we're going to talk to so-and-so person in Japan. These are some things you might want to keep up on. Or was it you kind of got into a Skype call and it just embarrassed yourself?
I didn't actually embarrass myself with anybody Japanese.
Oh.
What I did do, though, was I thought that because somebody had really good English, and usually when I'm talking to someone from a different country, they have an accent or something that kind of tips me off. In this one particular case, somebody called and wanted to talk to me, and their English was like perfect. And I jumped right in like they're American. And she was not American. But after I figured out who she was, I kind of backtracked and said, how are things going there? You know, usually they don't get so offended if they know that you're American, because they know that's who we are. But it's always better to err on the side of caution and just ask people how they're doing.
Ways. They have to understand the way we are, and we have to understand the way they are as well.
And they have American culture in their face all the time. For us, it's a sign of respect if we treat them the way is culturally appropriate for them.
CMST 210, take it. It goes over in that class.
And you can also take cultural anthropology. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that class. I took it as because I like taking classes, I guess. I took it because I was interested. I also took a world history class because I was interested. And cultural anthropology will teach you some of those things to pay attention, be aware, or just learn it before you're in the situation. That way you don't accidentally say or do something that's highly offensive.
You said you got a web development degree from here, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you get into project management?
That's a funny story. So all of my classes here at Clark, occasionally we had group projects. I don't know if you guys know these people, so I'm not going to use any names. There was a girl in my group that everybody decided was going to be the project manager on my first group project. And I really wanted to do a great job, but she was the one that wasn't showing up. She was the one that was not really following through. And I got the idea that the whole thing would have gone a lot better if she hadn't been the project manager. So on my following group projects, I just kind of jumped in with, I'm gonna be the project manager, not because I wanted to be bossy, but because I like being organized, I like keeping things on track, and just because the way my life was, if we put everything on the last 2 days before something was due, I couldn't do it. It was impossible. So I tried to encourage people I was working with to not wait to the last second to get stuff done, and most of the time that worked out pretty well. But when I was in my last quarter here, I had a class with Crystal, and one of the things I chose to do for that class was go and talk to different people from different companies around town and ask them some questions. I was kind of interested in project management already, so I went at it from that angle, like, do you guys have a project manager, and what do they do, and how do you handle these situations, and that kind of thing. And what ended up happening was I graduated, and I had been working in the Clark Scholarship Office, and they offered me a job after I graduated, so I thought, oh, okay, I'm just gonna tell everybody about scholarships for the rest of my life, which is cool, because I love scholarships. And I could stand up here and talk for 3 hours about scholarships. But one day I got this call from this guy. He said, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but we were thinking maybe we'd like to talk to you about getting an internship here. And he said, but I don't want you to get too excited because it's not for web development. And so I went and talked to him, and they asked me if I would be an intern for project management for 2 or 3 months and see. 3 months, actually. He said 3 months. So I agreed. I thought, well, it's this or continue working part-time at Clark. So I did that, and they hired me before 2 months. They started paying me. They just started putting checks on my desk because I was like, no way. I said 3 months for the internship, and I offered to do it for free. I wanted to keep my word, but they started paying me anyway.
What jerks.
I know, right? Really messed up my taxes. Yeah.
What was the smallest project that you've taken on that caused you the most difficulties?
Oh, that is such a good question. I will show it to you. I love these people. They're fantastic. They're absolutely the best hearted people I have. Like it comes up. So, have you guys tried Plonker's popcorn? You should absolutely go check it out. They have it at Chuck's and several other grocery stores around. These people, this guy's name is Daryl and his wife's name is Debbie. Here's a picture of Daryl. They're great people. They're fantastic, but they don't have a lot of money, and they wanted to have a website. The website looks great. The cart even is pretty simple, and it looks great. But we had an extremely small budget for this project as far as e-commerce sites go. For them, it was a big budget. For us, it was a tiny budget. But my team was great. It's just that it breaks, and they don't use the tools, and they don't want to maintain it because it costs money. And so, I love them, and they're great clients, and I hope they never don't want to have work with us. This one has been, for me personally, this one has been a challenge because I like them, so I want to go fix things, you know. And then, but they don't have a lot of budget to work with, and honestly, it's a tough call because they don't sell a lot on the website. So it might be better. It works.
Yeah, is it worth it though?
Yeah, is it worth it? Yeah, I don't know. It might be better because it's basically a one-page site. If you use the navigation, it just takes you to. It's one-page site with a shop and a form in the footer. That's it.
Can you show some successful projects?
Oh, sure. Let's see.
Got about 5 minutes, Christine, because we have another exciting guest speaker.
Yeah. There you go. So this is one that we did for the county. On first glance, it looks like it's not that big of a deal. But these are just a fraction of the pages that are on this website. Wow. So if you go to, let me find a good one. Recycling done right. Then all of these pages that are in this sidebar menu are not anywhere in this big menu. And there are several pages like that. And even when you get into some of these pages, then you have more. That's not one of them, but even when you go to one of those inner pages, sometimes you get more pages. So you drill down and there's hundreds of pages. And one of the great challenges of this site is we make garbage look good. We do. Look at it. It's like, that's all about garbage or recycling. But yeah, so that's our job, is to make garbage look good. And we do our best to make that happen and make people excited and encouraged to recycle and take care of the planet. This one's easy for us because we actually love the client and we love what they're doing, and so it's all good. You had a question?
Yeah, so we talked about project management, but how about your team? Like, how did you find them?
My particular team?
Yeah, what qualification do you look?
Oh, it depends on the project. Since we hire freelancers for everything that we're not doing ourselves, it depends on the project. Like, there's this really great graphic designer. She works for Dark Horse, I think, as her like day job, but she likes us, so she does stuff for us part-time when we need her. And she's super fast, she's very professional, and we love working with her.
So you just like happen to stumble upon her, or?
She's one of Karen's friends.
Oh.
So, yeah. It's funny because I was talking to a PSU student this morning about this. It's all about who you know. Even if you just met them one time, it's really all about who you know. I wouldn't have the job I have today if I didn't go out and meet them. So it's contrary to that introverted thing that most of us that are attracted to web development have, but you have to go meet people. And it could be another developer that helps you get a job too. Karen's husband is computer engineer. Like, he used to build amazing things for, I think it was Peace Health, or I don't remember the company, but they hire, people will hire based on a personal recommendation, or that they even met you one time, over somebody that they have never met and don't know anything about. Another big site we did is vhausa.org. We made them change to a .org. They were a .com before. This one's...
Well, that looks familiar.
That one's live, and actually their .com is down.
I used to work there.
Did ya?
Yeah, I helped them get started for the project management system.
They're hiring right now. They're hiring a Section 8. Yeah.
I used to work out the front desk and Tracy would go out.
I love Tracy. She's awesome.
She's awesome.
I would bring her home with me if I could. Now I'm trying to think of another. Let's see, for... I think it's .com? No, that's the wrong one.
It's actually cool now that you have it live though, because it's
yeah, we were in the UX class that did the testing on it. Yeah.
There it is. So this is one of the older sites. This one they did before I was there, but we recently updated their blog, and I designed their new homepage blog feed, because when we updated the blog, it was really wonky. So there are lots of websites. Oh, this is the one that we've gotten the best word of mouth from. Whoops. She's an attorney. She specializes in people who are, oh, really? I spelled it wrong. There we go. She's an attorney. She specializes in divorce type work, except she doesn't ever go to court anymore. She is all collaborative. So her old site was your typical, I'm an attorney, everything is dark green and dark brown, and you know what I mean. And so she wanted this fresh, clean, new look that would convey that she's not your typical attorney. And so we just kind of gave her some actually pretty subtle design indicators, but also kept some Pacific Northwest in there. And out of this, we've gotten a lot of people calling us and asking.
All right, that's all the time we have for Christine. So